Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech, protected.
Welcome to the Long Road. I'm your host, Chris Roberts. And here we are. We're having an election in 20 days. Some states around the country are already voting right now. Excuse me. But here in New Hampshire, 20 days, we're going to cast our vote. But we've heard a lot of things over the past 5-6 months or more. We've been hearing about how Donald Trump is going to destroy democracy if he gets elected, how Donald Trump is going to become a dictator if he gets elected. We've been hearing this thing back and forth, back and forth. We heard former President Obama tell a group of black men that they're sexist because they can't support a woman for president. No, I didn't hear anybody say, hey, people were being sexist when they were voting for Barack Obama over Hillary Clinton. But we have all these things going on. But I just want to make you think. Think if you have an 8 or a 9-year-old child. 8 or 9 years old. Think if you're 54, 55, 56 years old, on one case, in 10 years, there'll be that 8 or 9-year-old child will be graduating from high school with maybe a hope to go on to college or maybe to a tech or a business school, or just has plans for their future. Well, you're 55, 56, and you can't, maybe on some of them have to be 57, and in 10 years, you plan on taking retirement and collecting Social Security. You know what, I'm going to take early retirement, or I'll work up into the max Social Security age. 10 years from now, you know, if you're 8 or 9 years old, 10 years seems like an eternity. If you're 55, 56, 57, time feels like it's on light speed, just blowing on by. So while we're talking candidates and the surrogates and all these people are talking, well, you know what? I want to give basically every black man who owns a business $20,000. It's a little kind of racist. I want to give anybody who has never had a home before $25,000. Or, you know what? I don't want any money, any Social Security payment taxable. I don't want any tips taxable. I don't want any money earned on overtime taxable. I want the, if I'm elected, I'm going to extend the 2017 tax cut. You know, the one that we played with the numbers and gave it an end date so the cost wouldn't look that big. But if we extend it, it's only like $4.7 trillion cost over the next 10 years. Or, you know, I agree that we should extend those the tax cuts from 2017, but only for people who make $400,000 and less. Well, $400,000 is not middle class. It's not working class. And what the heck? But more than 95, some numbers say up to 98% of the people in the United States make less than $400,000 for the household in a year. So we're going to do away with those tax cuts and make the millionaires pay more. But if that's only 2% of the population, 5% of the population, I don't think you're going to get much more out of that. And we just look at all these. Promise after promise after promise. And there is a saying right here. Real reform frightens voters. So I want to get elected. So I'm not going to tell the people of America or the people of my state that, you know what? We have some problems. The boat is taking on a lot of water. But we're not going to discuss the whole in those. Hey, I'll give you better food. I'll give you better health care. I'll do this. I'll do this. But, you know, we're not going to discuss the hole in the bottom of the ship that's taking on water. There was just a debate between the Republican and the Democratic nominee for governor of New Hampshire. The moderator specifically asked both candidates, the way the projection is looking right now, the state of New Hampshire may have a $1 billion shortfall. How are you going to address it? And you know what? Neither candidate gave an answer. One candidate says, well, you know, I'll bring the dividends tax back in. That was just a gift by the Republicans to the wealthy. Well, then the other candidate goes and says, see, you just want to increase taxes. And it kept going back and forth. They gave all these cockamanian answers to a lot of questions that weren't even asked, but they would not ask the most important question to the citizens of New Hampshire. They refused to ask it. The moderator got frustrated about it. When these same questions are brought up to Donald Trump and Harris, they refuse to answer it. Oh, we're going to put a tax on millionaires. We put a tax on wealth. We'll do all these. But you know what? It doesn't affect anything. Not at all. And you're going, oh, yeah. No, it is not. is Harris going to put this big major tax increase on the billionaires and stuff? The billionaires that had a meeting that 74 out of 75 said they were not going to fund the Democratic Party unless Harris replaced Biden. Those are her own people. Those are the people that are doing their best, are paying to get her elected. Donald Trump, same way. He wants to cut. And his increase is, we'll put 60% tariff on things coming from China. Oh, yes. Let's see, things coming from China. Oh, let's go to the Dollar Tree store or the dollar store or go to Walmart. Almost everything in Walmart comes from China. What happened to that sign a couple years ago where Walmart said they were committed to buying so much from America and to help create American jobs? Okay? I don't have to go to Walmart to buy stuff. I go to Walmart because it's an economical thing to do. But if Walmart's prices, say, a 24 pack of X brand soda went up $1.50, okay? I have a choice whether to buy that or say, no, I'm not going to buy it. I may buy the store brand. Well, or maybe soda is, let's say, a box of cereal. So the box of cereal used to be 22 ounces and $4. The price goes up to $5 and 18 ounces. If it's one of my favorite cereals and I want to buy it, I'll pay for it. Bingo. And I can pay cash. Bingo, no problem. Well, you can have a family, mother and father working, have 2 kids going to school, and guess what happens? If it goes up $1, they may never be able to afford it again. If it goes from 22, even if it stayed the same, it goes from 22 to 18 ounces, they're going to feed their children less. So the biggest problem that we have now, that's the biggest threat to American democracy, the biggest threat to our way of life, the biggest threat to our standard of living is our debt. Okay? Look at Great Britain. Great Britain, which used to be the most powerful nation in the world, has destroyed itself and cannot afford a lot of the quality of life issues it used to be doing. It cannot do that. Rome, France, like I said, Great Britain, Spain. We can name, even if we only want to consider Western civilization, we can name economic powerhouses that were destroyed because they overspent their capacity. We were able to get away with stuff because we could ship stuff to, for the 40 years, we were the only game in town. The rest of the world was basically destroyed, had no economic capacity, and everything had to come through us. They don't care. They don't need us like we think we need them, like we think that they think that we need them. One of those. Okay? So just think, right now, $36 trillion. $36 trillion. That may not seem like much, but before this show is over with, I'm going to talk about what you think is a faraway, distant problem is going to smack us, the people who live in Keene, the people who live in Cheshire County, and the people who live in New Hampshire. What DC does affects us. DC has been buying our votes with money that they don't have for years. The Congressional Budget Office, they come up every year with a 10-year projection. 10-year projection. The Congressional Budget Office projects in June that the annual budget deficit will reach $1.9 trillion by the end of this year and will climb up to $2.9 trillion in the year 2034. So, that's what I'm saying. 10 years from now, when your third grader graduates from high school, 10 years from now, when you're 55, 56, 57, and planning to retire, the bill is coming due. The Congressional Budget Office projects, this is not Republican, this is not Democrat, and the Congressional Budget Office can only look what laws are in effect right now. And so, they have said, based on what is in effect right now, the debt, yes, the debt, will grow by over $22 trillion. Get that again. $22 trillion. That's if nothing is projected to change. Nothing is extended. If everything stays the same, it will go up $22 trillion. That's not if nothing even goes wrong. So, if everything goes right, 10 years from now, our debt will be at least $58 trillion. Just think of it. It is mind-boggling. $58 trillion. Can you think of that? 58 trillion if everything goes right. Okay? Let's see, put some other things on. Donald Trump wants to renew his his 2017 tax cuts, which are due to end this year. Well, so he extends them. Then the thing has to get recalculated, and it says it will only add $4 trillion in debt. So Donald Trump goes in and does that, and the Republicans get it, and they do that. So now 58 trillion is now 62 trillion in 2035. Hey, they want to stop taxing Social Security. If you go over a certain limit, you have to pay taxes on your Social Security. But that would only add $1.7 trillion on over the next 10 years. So now you're up to $63.8 trillion. And, do away with tips. That would only add about $200 billion. Now you're up to $64 trillion. $64 trillion. Oh, that doesn't count student loan debt that's written off. That it doesn't count more money like $165 billion to Ukraine. So if you go Ukraine 165 trillion and you got to pay 4 or 5% interest on it, at the end of the 10 years when you put that in, you could be around $400 billion. But if you keep giving more and more money every year, you can see how it goes up. So Harris wants to give $25,000 to homeowners, like 3 million people who want to be homeowners. That costs money, and that's not in there. Harris wants to give $6,000, which I agree, to mothers who have kids and to people who have children, which I think it's important, but there should become responsibility. You just don't give someone who may be irresponsible having children $6,000 extra a kid so they can go out and blow on themselves. No, we're doing that to improve the quality of life of the children and to ensure the children get the opportunity to be successful. And so when you go in adding all these, Donald Trump wants to reduce the capital gains, and they're going back and forth. But neither one of these candidates are talking about it. Neither one. Because they know that if they tell us that, we're not going to vote for them because we, the people, do not like bad news. Well, we, the people, bet to accept the bad news because you only have less than 10 years left. And here's some of the things that will happen. Oh, yeah. Just think. 2033, 2034, 8-9 years from now, Social Security goes broke. You go, and oh, yeah, by the way, that means everybody could lose at least 20% of their Social Security, monthly Social Security check. The only way that could be made up is the federal government would have to go deeper in debt to keep that at the current level at that time. Oh, Harris and Trump both want to come up with plans to help, people to stay at home, for elderly care, and all these different things. But neither one have come up with it. Come up with the plan. No one wants to discuss the cost, and no one wants to discuss how they're going to fund it. Well, you can go to county nursing home and pay $12,000 a month, $150,000 a year to sit there, lay there, and go to your quality of life. But when all your assets run out, you go on to Medicare. And then Medicare has to pick up the cost. And so for a lot of people, oh, you're stuck. You worked your whole life. Then next, pretty soon you know, you've lost your house, you lost all your savings and everything for the privilege of going on Medicaid. That's a screwed up privilege. What are you going to do? If Medicare doesn't have money, Medicaid doesn't have money, well, the federal government matches state. They have a formula that they will pay for to match some of the money that the state pays. So if the federal government runs out of Medicaid funding and doesn't give it to the state, that means to keep the same services, local and state taxes have to go up to cover that cost. No different, excuse me, when the state doesn't increase the funding to the county nursing homes, guess what? When the county nursing home runs a deficit, the county taxpayers have to make up the difference. No free lunch, no matter what the politicians say, no free lunch. And you go, nah, how is it going to affect us? Just think. Think of a lot of things that we, the community, or just we, the people, are depending on by the federal government. Things the politicians have been using to buy us off. Okay? When I was coming here today, I was listening to KBK and talking about 100 Nights. 100 Nights was looking to open their heating shelter. Like tonight, it's getting down to 24 and the wind's picking up to 30. And it says, oh, they only have an occupancy for 49 people and 100 Nights shelter is full. It has 49 beds and all 49 beds are full. So the heating shelter, they're looking for donations, would only be during the daytime or early morning. Any of those other people that go there to come out of the cold will have to leave no matter how cold it is, because they cannot spend, 100 Nights cannot have more than 49 people sleeping there at any one time. But don't worry, the number of homeless in Keene is not that high, but it's got to be at least 49 because that's how many people are in the shelter right now. Okay. Yeah, Kamala Harris promises 1 million business loans to black entrepreneurs. 1 million business loans of $20,000 each. That's some in the billions too. Yep, about 20 billion bucks. Not bad. Where does that come from? They go, hey, both Trump and Kamala Harris say, hey, or Harris go, hey, we agree we should not be taxing tips. Wow. That's really good. So you don't have to pay Social Security on your tips, and you don't have to pay taxes on your tips. So we increase the deficit, and we take money away from Social Security that really needs it. Smart idea. Okay? But wait a minute. If I'm working back different round places in the building, they're making extra money and they don't have to pay taxes on it. Hey, so we come up with a better plan. You know what? Overtime will be tax-free. Well, guess what? If I'm a business guy, why would I want to pay overtime if the individual doesn't have to pay taxes, but I have to pay Social Security on it? Again, they're just throwing things out without thinking of the long-term consequences. Yes, the Federal Reserve is reducing the interest rate, and people go say, hey, we're going to reduce the interest rate, but that would mean our interest payments would go down. No, because our debt right now is what I have. The thing is, what was it? It was $8 billion a day. That is how much our deficit debt is increasing. $8 billion a day. What is $8 billion? Oh, just think of the New Hampshire state budget. Okay? $8 billion bucks. Just think. Every day, the increase in the national debt would fund everything in the state of New Hampshire for a whole year. Just think of that. Okay? And I said, how will this federal debt affect us? We like to think, well, hey, you know what? I'm not going to be collecting Social Security pretty soon. So, hey, no problem at all. I don't have to worry about it. So, you know what? Hey, I'm not collecting Social Security in the next 10 years, so I don't have to worry about it being reduced to 77%. I'm not going to be on Medicaid. So, hey, well, I'm not going to worry about free and reduced lunch. I can pack my kids' lunch, or I can pay almost $1,200 a year for school lunches. Hey, no big deal. Well, it is a big deal. We've been living high on the hog. We had this big fat hog that the federal government came and says, here, people of the United States, here's a big fat hog for you guys to chow down on. This is also, I got a big fat lamb over here for you to chow down on. And I got a big fat steer here for you to chow down on. So we're providing these three big, fat, juicy animals to chow down on. We're not going to offend anybody's religion. You are going to be able to chow down, and you don't even have to pay for it. It's a free lunch. Do what you want with it. You want to cut a piece of meat off and give it away? You want to cut a piece of meat off and waste it? Or you want to cut a piece of meat off, or mutton or pork, and just spend it on, has nothing to do with the intentions. You know, like, Build Back Better. I haven't seen many infrastructure projects going on around here this summer or last summer. I did see a bridge up on Route 91 and some resurfacing, but no, I haven't seen any big projects in Build Back Better, care in things. Just give you a little idea. The state of New Hampshire was in American Rescue Plan. The state of New Hampshire was given $1.54 billion in stimulus. State of New Hampshire, government of New Hampshire, had over $900 million. Over $900 million to do what it wanted to. Where they can dole out and stuff. That's not counting over $300 million in the education side of the house. So they reduced some business taxes. They eliminated some other taxes. And, $1.54 billion. It ended September 30th of this year. Ended 2 weeks ago. And right now, the state of New Hampshire could possibly be facing up to a $1 billion shortage. What happened was the federal government never told us those cash cows, cash pigs, cash muttons that they were giving us had a little fine print. This money is not going to be replaced. It's a one-time deal. And once the deal is up, you have to pay for the pigs and the sheep and the cattle because we're not doing it. But thank you for your vote. You go, well, that's the state. Well, for the fiscal year 2025, the one we're in right now, the state of New Hampshire will have $2.4 billion in federal aid. $2.4 billion, which comes out to over 30% of the New Hampshire state budget is from the federal government. That's a lot to do if I was depending on my rich uncle to pay 30% of my housing, my heating, all my bills every year. Then all of a sudden, he goes, "Oh, it wasn't a good year. I'm not paying as much." Oops. Okay, let's get closer to home. In 2021-22, the Cheshire County approved something like $7.9 million of the American Rescue Plan and Care funding. Cheshire County was granted at least $14.7 billion. $million. Honor that. Hey, they did really well. They raised the wages of mostly all the staff and the low and paying staff in the nursing home. You can go, yes. But you know what? That cost keeps increasing. You got one-time money, you raised it, and it keeps on going up and up and up and up forever. So that is not a one-time cost. It's a one-time income, but a lifelong cost. Keene State College got over $5 million. And in the city 2021-22 budget, or 22-20, I think it's 21-22, the city of Keene stated it received $27 million in federal funds. $27 million in federal funds. Oh, the county got $14.7 million plus, so it allowed the county to increase wages. It allowed the county to buy land and build a new emergency ambulance service in Swansea and buy ambulances. I'm not arguing whether they're needed or not, but ambulances are pretty expensive. Some can go up as high as $1 million. Okay, again, a one-time income, but a forever cost. The question is, are the services that the Cheshire County Ambulance Service providing, are the costs going to be fully funded by state insurance and federal reimbursement? Medicare reimbursement is not always that great. Medicaid isn't always that great, and a lot of times doesn't cover the cost. So say everything was, for the last 3 years, everything was covered by this $15 million. Now this $15 million is no longer there. We have new personnel, we have new equipment, a forever cost. We increase the salaries of people, again, a forever cost. The money in the 3 years was able, oh yeah, we didn't increase your taxes, or, and actually the tax rate actually went down, okay? It's semantics. Again, I'm not saying that the people at Maplewood did not deserve an increase. I'm not saying that Cheshire County didn't need an ambulance service, that DeLucio went out of business. They were both valid decisions, but they have a long-term cost that will start showing up in next year's budget. Not this year's budget, but next year's budget. And the school district. You've probably been noticing that the school district has been returning a lot of money over the last couple of years. In 22, by the end, it had until the end of 22 to spend the money, was $518,000. And in 23, another $2.5 million. And in 24, another $5.6 million. So the school district got at least $7.6 million. And then that was just some of the money that came. There was other areas that money came. And for example, here's just some of the things. And again, it's beneficial. It's being used, and it's been being used by the right people. It's been used by both the school district and the city of Keene. Is Jonathan Daniels. They got a handicap accessible playground. Okay? That handicap accessible playground, we were in the situation on the school is, well, if we don't spend the money, we have to give it back. So we spent over $600,000 to build that playground. Okay? So in a bunch of places, at the school level, at the city level, the county level, the state level, there was deadlines. So people and all were looking in, oh, we can't give this money back. We can't give this money back. Where can we spend this money? Okay, if I go and say I got $700,000 and I got to spend in the next 90 days, what can I do? Do I get something that meets the requirements and the needs, or I get something that I always dreamed of but never could afford? Some of those things came up. And so, again, here it is, the part that really, really irritates me is how we have people at the state level and the federal level, the people who are running for governor in New Hampshire, people who are running for the presidency of the United States do not have the moral and ethical courage to say, this boat has a leak and is taking on a lot of water. No, you know what they're doing? They're telling their friends, their supporters, we can't tell the people what's going on because they won't elect us. But you know what? I only plan on being governor for maybe 6 years. It won't affect me. Oh, hey, I'm only going to be president for 4, maybe 8 years. If I'm Trump, it's only 4 years. Hey, I added $8 trillion on. Biden-Harris, $8 trillion. So what if I add another $8 trillion on? It hasn't done much to the country in the last 8 years. We added 16 trillion. So what's 22 trillion? Harris can be going, hey, so I'm president for 8 years. 16 trillion in 8 years, 22 trillion in 8 years. What is the big difference? What's the big deal? And plus, if the Congressional Budget Office is underestimated like it usually does, they're both saying, we're out of here before the bill comes due. Couple of things that have changed. Over 80% of the reserve deposits that countries around the world had were in US dollars, US Treasury bills, all that kind of stuff. Well, as of a few months ago, that number was down to 52%, according to Talib, the author of The Black Swan. And he had stated this was one of the two worst economic decisions made this century when the United States compensated all Russian assets in dollars and stuff. The other countries around the world says, nope, we're not putting any money in American dollars so America can take it away, put sanctions and take it away from us. So, three things are going to happen. One, they're going to have to count on American people and business to buy those treasuries. There'll be so much need for treasuries that the United States Treasury is going to have to pay a heck of a lot higher amount in interest. Or there just isn't going to be enough buyers. And that comes a default. Because we keep selling treasuries every month just to replace even more for the ones that come due. So we keep having to produce and we keep having to sell more, else we will be in default. We're talking about a debt cap? No. The easiest way to go to default is no one wants to buy your bonds anymore. Second way, okay, if I'm the Fed and I sit down with the president, the treasurer, and I go, this is really getting way too much. We're old enough to know things go bad over a 10-year period. Again, either way, make sure you go out and vote.
Secrets in the shadows, lost and found. Truth in every